Hey financial warriors, welcome to the show. And President Biden just released his new budget proposal for 2023, which is $5.8 trillion and does include $1.4 trillion in deficit. In other words, $1.4 trillion that will have to be borrowed in order to meet the requirements of the whole budget. Now, to be fair, if this budget happens, the deficit will be decreasing in 2023. However, it will start to increase from 2025 onwards. The frightening part is the amount of interest the US is going to have to pay on its national debt as interest rates and borrowing rise, which will hit $1 trillion per year by 2031. And thus it looks like there are going to have to be some big tax hikes to pay for that. And that is the part we're interested in, since this is a personal finance channel, so we really want to know how this budget will affect your money. Mainly, what are the tax implications of it? And also do remember that the White House budget, it's not really a set budget, since budgets have to be passed by Congress, so really it's more of just a guide, like the speed limit on most roads.
We're not breaking any laws, right?
But hey, check this out. Just a guide, right? No? Anyway, Biden has called for tax hikes totaling $2.5 trillion on high net worth individuals and companies over the next 10 years. One big item that has been put forth by the Biden administration is the so-called Billionaires Tax, which would be a 20% minimum tax on households with a net worth of over $100 million. And this tax would be levied on both income and on unrealized capital gains. Unrealized capital gains are gains in value on things like stocks and real estate that has increased in value with the market but has not been sold yet. So the gain is unrealized, it's just on paper and it could go back down again. But this proposal calls for taxing those gains. So here's how it works. Let's say you had an investment property, and we use some pretty big numbers because this is only for high net worth individuals, okay? So let's say that your building that you've invested in increased in value from $9 million to $10 million in the space of 1 year, okay? Well, that $1 million increase from 9 to 10 million, that would be your unrealized capital gain. And that would now be taxed at a rate of 20%. So that would be a $200,000 bill that the IRS would send you. But the problem is you haven't sold your building and actually realized that gain. So where is the money gonna come from to pay that $200,000 tax bill? Well, there are a few sources. You could get your money from a different source, okay? A job or another investment that you have sold and use it to pay the tax on the building that you haven't sold. It could come from the rents that you're levying on tenants in that building, and thus it would reduce the amount of income you get from that building. Or you could sell a stake in that building to other investors, and thus that would decrease your amount of ownership, eroding your wealth over the years. Now, this tax has been referred to before as a wealth tax. It was previously proposed by Elizabeth Warren, and it might actually be unconstitutional. Here is what the Wall Street Journal cites as the likely argument against it in court. Taxing capital gains that haven't been realized yet falls outside the income taxes allowed by the 16th Amendment that don't have to be apportioned based on state population. Under current law, individuals pay capital gains tax only when the gain is realized, typically when they sell an asset such as a stock, closely held business, or painting. Basically, the income taxes we have now are allowed because of the 16th Amendment. The Constitution does not allow taxes that are not apportioned based on state population other than the standard federal and state income taxes and the capital gains tax on realized gains. So it would likely be challenged in court, and the challengers have plenty of money to hire a team of expensive lawyers to win it for them. All right, now let's look at a couple of other proposed tax changes. So Biden wants to increase the top rate of federal income tax from 37% up to 39.6%, which was the top rate before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. For your reference, single filers pay that rate on income over $539,000, and joint filers pay that rate on income over $647,000. So it won't affect most people. However, it will affect a lot more people than the proposed so-called Billionaires Tax. And it is worth noting that the personal side of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act will expire in 2025 anyway. So it's only a matter of time before middle-class taxes start going up, unless Congress steps in and does something. Then we have an increase in the corporate tax rate from 21% up to 28%. Now this stops short of increasing to 35%, which was the rate before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, but it certainly would still make the US less competitive place to do business compared to other countries. And then lastly, there is one tax break that has been omitted from the proposal, and that is lifting the $10,000 cap on the state and local tax deduction. This affects high earners in high tax Democrat-run states, and several Democrats in Congress have actually said that this would be a prerequisite, okay, lifting that cap on the deduction if they are going to vote on any bill that alters the tax code. I mean, that's kind of obvious since they're representing the people in those states and, you know, they're going to be up for re-election, etc. They want to look out for their constituents. So in total, these proposed tax increases in Biden's budget would be the biggest tax increase in history, although to put that in perspective, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was the biggest tax cut in history, so, you know, just weighing it up there. Personally though, I think that not that much of this will actually become a reality. I was reading an article in The Hill where they talk about how Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was actually a surprisingly bipartisan piece of legislation and thus difficult to repeal. The only part that they can really touch without looking nasty is raising the top rate of tax and the tax rates on billionaires and people like that. If you start touching the lower down tax brackets, you start raising taxes for the middle class, and Biden and the Democrats obviously need their votes in the midterms and in the 2024 election. It's also possible that Congress could ignore a lot of this proposed tax strategy and come up with their own bill that congressmen and women and senators are prepared to vote on. The tax on unrealized capital gains is probably unconstitutional, and even if it were to pass, it would probably get challenged in court. So I would say that's basically dead on arrival. I can see the top rate increasing, however, from 37 to 39.6. I think that probably is doable. The optics of it are okay. And perhaps the business tax rate could increase, although it wouldn't be that great of a strategy for the economy as we are recovering from this pandemic, and several Democrats had already said that they would reject those proposals. Guys, let me know what you think about these tax proposals in the comments down below. Don't forget you can get 5 free stocks from Webull using my link below. That's for opening up a new account and depositing any amount of money, okay? Any amount, it's crazy. And they're doing that promotion until the end of March, so be quick. Otherwise, please subscribe to our channel if you're new, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.